Hello, my name is Catlivman, and today we are going to be taking a look at 8 different Minecraft houses that I built from scratch to show you how to build the best Minecraft house. So let's get straight into it. Now the first house we start off with is pretty much a classic, level 0 house, the dirt house. Now this isn't obviously pretty much the worst house you can build. This has a bunch of fatal flaws on it, such as the glass. The grass can grow up the glass, and the glass is in the corner, and it's a box. It has a flat roof. It pretty much has all of the big no's when coming to building. And so now let's move on to the next house. The level 1 house, which by the way that was level 0. The level 1 house is slightly improving upon this design, where basically it's slightly bigger, which bigger houses are always better. The roof actually slopes instead of being just a flat roof, and there are double doors, which pretty much always look better in my opinion. And we use glass panes, and we don't just use one block dirt. Now there's obviously several flaws with this design, such as these stairs. We could actually easily improve this by just taking a look at the next one. You see, if we took the stairs and just barely moved them one block more out so they're more of a 3D feature, and then use these upside down stairs so it doesn't look like this, then your house will look just probably, I would absolutely want to live in this house rather than this one. Now the next couple of good things about this house is that we used 2 tall windows, which always look much better. We used a design for the base and the side walls, which is something I rarely see anybody really focus on or even talk about. So here's a very good tip when building is make sure you have a block for the bottom and a block for the top. It just makes your house overall just look much better. Along with that, we use logs in the corners, which makes it look so much better than this bland one block all the way around wall texture. But the thing about this house is that it uses granite, and some people are a big fan of this block. I personally hate granite with a fiery passion, so I used a command block. You can replace it with sand or smooth sandstone. Again, maybe not the best, but this goes into the next step, is try to use smooth blocks for a wall design. Now by smooth I don't mean look up smooth like smooth stone or anything like this. Actually, smooth stone would be the opposite of what I'm talking about, because if you use smooth stone, it has this weird pattern, like these edges. And what I think looks almost always better for a wall is to have a seamless pattern on the wall. That's a big tip for building. But if you still want the house to look like dirt and have seams, there you go. Moving on to the next house, we have some house that I somewhat regret building, but just because of the color palette. But ignoring the color palette, let's take a look at why this house is better than this house, I guess. But ignoring the colors for now, you notice that this is a much more 3D house. And you might not understand, like Minecraft is a 3D game, it should be easy to make a 3D house. But you might argue that this house just intrinsically looks more 3D than this one. Now the reason for this is we don't have flat sides. We have a first layer, which is this roof right here. Then we use the logs, and instead of putting them as the corners of the house, we still have them as the corners of the house, but the wall, I guess you could say, is more inset to the house compared to this one. And so it just looks a whole lot better. And so here you go. This is what the house would look like if you just had a flat wall. Even though this is probably one of the ugliest houses I've ever built, it still looks much better when you actually have that inset in the wall, and rather than this just rather flat concept. Then for the next house, level 4 house, we're basically just reiterating the things we said with this house. More dimension looks better. And so as you can see here, we have one thing for like the log type outer pillar area, which instead of using a log, I used polished basalt, which looks as an amazing gray log besides acacia. Then we make another layer for the walls and the windows, and for the doors as well. So we have this quite a nice just gradient of dimension going on in this house. We also added some foliage on the outside here, which doesn't work in every single type of build, but especially in this house, it did seem to come out quite nice. The next tip for this one is the roof right here. Now, some of you probably are just saying this looks absolutely disgusting, andesite and diorite, but I actually quite like both of these stones. And when you use these on a roof, at least if you use two colors on a roof, one that's more like a textured one and one that's slightly less textured, it actually makes the roof look so much more better than just a single block roof. And also, you can notice one reason this one looks better than this house, well, for obvious reasons besides the color palette, is that it's actually just slightly bigger. Again, bigger the house, the better the house is. Now, the next house we have on the list, level 5, which is actually good according to the sign, whoever placed that sign there. But this house, now the big reason why you can see this house is better than the last couple, I mean, to some people, at least to me, is that it's actually not a square. If you look at all the rest of these houses, they just have a square outline. But your house can have so much more detail and just look much more like a real life house. Look up houses in the real world. They're not all just squares. Your house will just look so much better when you add a little bit of variation to the shape. And so as you can see here, we have some diagonals, which are extremely hard to build with, but you can go with that. And we just have some flat walls, but we just have lots and lots of turns on this house. And it just looks so much better, at least to me, than your standard cube house. Also with this house is we use the stairs to make these really nice looking windows. Now, on these windows, you can actually tell we've done more of the dimension thing, which I keep talking about. We have something for the roof and for the outer, I guess, I don't know what you would call this. But then we go to the main part of the window with the stairs, and then we have the actual window, the glass. And so it makes it feel much more 3D and way better than just a flat window. And now the next house, level 6, is actually a exact replica of this house right here, except we used World Edit, which is a building mod, to move it 2 blocks higher and then just basically filled in the blocks on the bottom, and we added this balcony type thing and another balcony over here. And I just wanted to do this to point out that making a slightly taller house will allow for these type of things, the balcony or stairs up to your house or just a more dramatic entrance, make it a whole lot easier. Things like second layers or basements will just look a lot better when you do something like this. This next house isn't actually that much different than the last house, except for I just changed up the color palette to make it just feel a lot more welcoming. And so as you can see here, we used birch, which I know some people hate, but I actually quite like. But it's just a lot more warm, mixing in the dark oak planks and the stripped spruce wood. It's just quite a nice color combination. I also installed this doorbell, which if you hit this button, it actually rings the bell, but you can't actually see the bell. Where what we've done here is the button is on this block, it powers this block, therefore powering this bell. And so it actually just a quite nice addition to the house to make it just so much nicer. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, level 8, the best house I could possibly make within a couple days. And here it is. It's quite the large house. That might be the first thing that you might notice about this house is that it's just quite large. Again, bigger the house, the better it looks. Along with it being big, the next big thing that you might notice about this house is the roof. Notice that the roof is much more pointed and textured than the last couple of roofs. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is I really wanted to show how a different roof really does make a build. You see, what I did here in order to do this is I didn't really follow any design in particular, but what I used is I used warped planks, stairs, and slabs, and I just pretty much every layer randomized. I was like, okay, am I going to use stairs, or am I going to use slabs, or full blocks? So you can see there's quite a variation between each layer. And then I also added this stone brick stripe in the middle of it just to give it a little bit more texture, just to break up all of that warped wood. Probably the third and fourth thing popping about this house is you might notice the pillars are back. In the couple last houses I did not add pillars, but I just want to show you how pillars actually really do make a house look nice. Also, there is enough space in this house for 2 layers of windows, meaning that if you wanted to actually build a second layer in this house, it will also it will make a lot more sense than in this house where a second layer isn't as doable. And the third thing on the exterior that I will point out that before we go back inside is these handmade trees. Now, they don't actually really fit in to the rest of the build, probably just because I haven't really done any more outside work on this house, but I just wanted to show that if you make a couple of these handmade trees, no matter if you're as bad as making them like me, which I'm not exactly the most talented at making these, but if you just make a couple of these trees, it just really adds to your normal Minecraft house. I would strongly recommend do not use in-game trees. Some people might think they look cool, and some people might hate them. I personally am part of the people who absolutely hate in-game trees. So I would definitely stick to making your own trees for the exterior of your house. And a couple tips for that is I would use the birch wood, if you're making a birch tree, of course, but I would use the wood that has the texture on all sides to make these curves that don't look weird. And then also make sure to keep the leaves away from the trunk, the main part of the tree, because if you do that, it'll just probably look a lot more realistic. And the third and final tip about making these trees is the roots in the ground. Now, I was actually showing these trees off to somebody, and they suggested, hey, why don't you use this birch wood again and just place them in the ground to kind of add these roots. And I tried it, and it just looks so good. So this is just another tip for making your handmade trees. But now, stepping inside of this house, we have quite the surprise for when you walk in, a piston door. Now, if you didn't know, a piston door will probably make your house probably 30 times more impressive than just using a regular door. A regular door will always work, but a piston door is just so much more impressive. The redstone on it is quite simple. I am not that good of redstone, and I made this in probably like 15 minutes. So yeah, just always add a piston door into your house. It just makes it look so much more impressive. And now, I haven't actually done any of the interiors of these houses, and so I'm just wanting to show you in the interior that making your house big is actually very, very important. Because in this house, this is probably the only house we've made where I could actually set up dividers in the house to add rooms and it not feel super cramped. So I could add something like a kitchen space over here, main living space, or I guess in Minecraft you have a storage room. You have a storage room, maybe not next to the giant window because that's not good for safety reasons. Or I could add stairs. I can make two levels to this house. I have so much more freedom with the interior when I build a large house. And also, along with building a large house, if you make a big roof like what I did, this actually looks really cool, but if you make a big roof like this, you actually have enough space to build an attic, or even 2 layers of an attic if you want it to be slightly cramped. And a big roof also implies, remember when you're building a big roof, you can also build quite the nice space inside of that big roof. But that should end it for today's video. If you found any of these tips useful, please leave a comment telling me where you found those tips useful. I greatly would appreciate it. And while you're down there in the comments, I would like a subscribe and a like. It just helps out quite a lot. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.